Right. Better late than never, huh? Right. So, normally every year I'll go over a collection of albums that I think were good that year. And I didn't for 2016. And I still haven't for my 2017 list either, so I figured I would just get a bunch of them. Normally I do 10 every year. Just say these are my favorite 10, why? But I honestly can't remember 20 albums over the last 2 years that have really resonated with me. So I've got about 15 here. I say about 15. I've got 15 here. Most of them are in CD form, so I'm going to hold them up and show you and then talk about them. Some of them don't have CDs, so I couldn't get a hold of them. If my video editing is good enough, I'll display them like here on the screen in digital form for you to see. So, number 15 out of these is kind of perhaps I don't know. It's an alright album, which isn't really the best start to this video, but I did listen to it a lot. That is this album, Hardwired to Self-Destruct by Metallica. I think, more than anything, I was just excited to hear new material from these guys for the first time in sometime 8 years, I think it was, because their album in 2008, while I liked it back then, being a huge Metallica nut, I sort of over time just realized it wasn't that great. But I have loved and still do love a lot of their earlier work, so I was very excited to hear this album, but it came out to me a little bit stark, a little bit plain. Nothing bad, per se, just, I don't know, nothing great, but I still found myself listening to it. Like, it's got a bunch of good riffs, it's got some good vocal melodies, it's got styles that sort of come from all of their other, you know, all of their other albums kind of can be heard within this one, for the most part, but perhaps besides Saint Anger. So it's alright. I enjoyed it enough to rock out to it a few times, so that's that. The next one, number 14, basically the same story, actually. It's another album where I was really excited to hear some new material from these guys after such a long time without it. This band has gone through some changes. This album is The Phoenix by CKY. Now, I just realized if I keep this video mirrored, all of these are going to be mirrored artworks. I'll try to remember not to do that. Yeah, so this album sees the departure of their original singer. Now, I don't know if you have ever heard CKY before. They've got a few like iconic rock songs that were like big in skater culture in the 2000s. Yeah, and you know, most of their previous material was really good, very recognizable, and this is recognizably them. However, the guitarist from before, or one of the guitarists from before, is now the lead singer. The old lead singer and guitarist left. No one filled his spot per se, just the other guy took over. I think he does a good job. However, one thing I think this album kind of falls flat on is the fact that it's basically all about that feud between the guitarist and the lead singer who left, because he left on bad terms and it was a mess or whatever. And the whole album just sort of stinks of, you know, oh, I'm in your spot now, I'm better than you, you know, fuck you, we don't need you. Which is, I guess that's great. Like, if he was an asshole and the new guy's like, yeah, I can take your spot, that's great. But like, the whole album basically just feels like it stems from that. And like, there's some good rocking tunes on here. I don't think I've ever sounded so lame in my life, but there's some good stuff on here. Just, I don't know, sometimes I gotta try and not listen to the lyrical content, because it's just like, yeah, whatever, I've gone on too long about that. Number 13, this album I did like all the way through, and don't have any faults to pick out on. This is Skin and Earth by Lights, which is a really, really fantastic effort by the wonderful Lights. However, it's kind of, you know, up in the higher part of this list, because while I do really like the album, and, you know, it's a great piece of work all the way through, you can hear tons of love and effort has gone into this, it does, I don't know, like, it's good, but it doesn't stick with me as much as her other ones have. Her other ones have all sort of had like a real cool, unique sonic soundscape going on, and while this one does, it's not especially unique in that aspect. It's a Lights album, it's really well polished, there's a lot of effort in it. It doesn't ooze like tons of character in my opinion. But it does ooze a lot, just not tons like the other ones before have that I've featured on these lists before. So yeah, that's that one. Number 12 on this list, which hopefully I'm going to edit up here because I don't have in CD form, fairly sure it doesn't exist, is Endless Vertigo Hyper Polka by Forlung, which, as you can probably tell by the artwork, it's kind of like having someone piss candy floss all over you really hard with their big minigun dick for an hour and a half until you have such a splitting headache, and you kind of want them to stop, but you just love being pissed on so much that you don't stop until the album is over, and then you're like, round two. So that's that. It's great. It's a lot of fun. It's loud, it's bouncy, and it just doesn't let up. And I love it. Number 11 is one that kind of surprised me. Not the sort of thing I thought I would ever get into that much. Is an album called Only Love Is Real by... I can think of better artist names. MC Yogi. Bless his heart. Just a really interesting mix of like MC style rapping, some reggae-ish vibes going on in there, you know, some more EDM-ish vibes going on. Lots of stuff happening in this. Just a sort of electronic and rap album, but it comes from a spiritual, what's the word I'm looking for? It is a bit spiritual. Good enough. So, like, you know, stuff about Hinduism, stuff about Buddhism, and finding your path, things like that. And, you know, I wasn't expecting that I would like that sort of thing, but I did. This album is great. I do think the first half, you know, it suffers from that thing where the first half is stronger than perhaps the last part of it, but ultimately it is a solid piece of work, I think. So that is that. Number 10. More metal this time. I can't fault this album in any way. It's just a fantastic piece of work, I think. This is Magma by Gojira. Normally their work is a lot more complex than this, musically speaking. Usually they do a lot of odd time signatures and really brutal riffs and stuff, and this album kind of strips it back and shows that they can do that just as well as their more complex stuff. Just a really nice piece of work that it grew on me. I didn't actually love it to start with. I thought it was great, but I didn't love it. I didn't even think it would make it onto these lists. But it has, because I've just kept listening to it, and the more I've listened to it, the more I just really enjoyed it. It sort of goes from heavy stuff to stuff that includes more trippy soundscapes, stuff that goes kind of choral at times, Some interesting riffs in there that even sound, you know, not that metal at all, kind of like, you know, they go more back to rock sometimes. There's some acoustic pieces in here, just all around really good album if you're into your metal, and even if you're not, it might be something that opens you to it, because it's not super heavy, it's good. Right, next one, completely different, is an album called Product, apparently, by Sophie. And I say apparently because there's nothing on this album case. Wait, what is there? No, that still just says Sophie there. There's nothing on here that suggests that it's called Product, but it is, so take my word for it, I think. It's a great album of kind of minimalistic, experimental, weird pop. Not really even that poppy. It's just weird. Just electronic music that's sort of full of little blips, squeaky vocals about fun, stupid things, and it's really nice to listen to. A lot of people probably don't like it because it's kind of weird, but you know, I've shown this to a few people and they've been like, what is that? And I've shown it to some other people and they've been like, this is great. So try it. Alright, number 8, I think, is Bonito Generation by Kero Kero Bonito. This is slightly similar to the Sophie album, but also not, in that it has kind of, you know, that sort of laid-back poppy feel, slightly experimental, very cheesy. This is probably the cheesiest album on this list, but it knows it is, and it doesn't care. Like, it owns that. I actually listened to this album all the way through for the first time when I went with my dad to London to go pick up my dog, my new pupper, who was just over there, out of shot, maybe. I think this is her here. You can't see her, ever. She blends into everything. But yeah, so this album basically, as well as reminding me of the summer of 2017, also reminds me of the autumn of, I think, 2016. Is that when I got my dog? Have I had my dog that long? Yeah, the autumn of 2016, when me and my daddo just went driving really early in the morning. It was a really sunny, really sunny, clear morning with some slight fog going on, and it was just such a happy day going up and collecting this dog. And yeah, good stuff, good album, good memories to go with it. What's next? Oh, another one to display on the screen just here. This is 2 albums, actually, because, well, it's the albums Lights and Road to Jupiter by Wolfgang. Both of these albums kind of like, they were basically made for each other, I'm pretty sure, because, you know, they kind of start with cameoing each other, and the albums basically are structured like each other, and the reason these are together is not necessarily because of that. It's because the times that I listened to these was when I went over to America in 2000 and... was it last year? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was last year, so 2017. And we would listen to these 2 albums in the car on a single CD. I think they were on a single CD. That, or we kept changing the CDs, but anyway, it got to the point where I couldn't tell which album was which because they were on like rewritable CDs that we'd burned. And just some really good stuff on here. Like, honestly, I haven't listened to the album since, so I, at this moment, can't tell you exactly what I love about each one. But if I were to listen to them now, I'd be like, ah, yes, those, because I just listened to them at a happy time, and they were, and still are, really good. So check those out if you haven't already. Next one's another 2 albums, one of which I'm going to show you on the screen here, and one of which I have the CD for because I lost the other CD. Right. First Aid Kit, Stay Gold, and the other one that might be on the screen here, First Aid Kit, the Big Black and the Blue. 2 folky albums. They're quite different from each other. This one is the newest of the 2, and the other one is the is their debut full-length album. So this one has a lot of sort of Americana vibes going on, and the other one has a lot of more stripped-back, folky, acoustic in the forest kind of vibes going on, both of which are great, and I've listened to pretty much constantly since I found out they existed. And if you're into folk music, you've probably already heard of First Aid Kit, because they're like basically mainstream folk now. But hey, if you haven't heard of them, then I suggest you go check them out if you're into folk music or you need some sort of gateway drug into folk music. A wonderful place to start. The first album of these, The Big Black and the Blue, actually reminds me of the winter of 2016. So like January and February-ish. For some reason, that particular winter, me and my mum were really into kebabs, and we'd just like go and get kebabs like maybe twice a week. I'm so glad I don't get kebabs twice a week now, but we listened to that in the car because that was the CD I had in the car, and it's probably still in the car somewhere. But yeah, just weird memories to go with that one, like listening to folk music and going to get kebabs with your mum. Good memories are good memories, I guess, apart from the, you know, kebab shit. Right, next one. Here's an interesting album. I don't really know if you'd categorize this into rock or metal. I guess punk would be the best place to put it. It's called Inter Alia, with dots in between, by At the Drive-In, and it's like their first album in God knows how long, since like 2000 or something. And I've heard a lot of fans say that this isn't true At the Drive-In because it doesn't have one of the members that used to be in it, and the singer doesn't sing quite the same as he used to, blah 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 blah. It's not like, you know, like 15 years have passed or something. But I think it's a great album. I couldn't really super well get into their older stuff. I tried. It's the same singer and guitarist as from the Mars Volta, which some of you may know that are like my favorite band ever. And so naturally I did try At the Drive-In, but you know, didn't really vibe with me that much, their older stuff. But this, I really like it. You'd have to just check it out for yourself. Most of the album keeps a pretty consistent tone going on, so it's not the most varied album, but it's one of those albums where the consistency helps it, I think, and it just all sits very well, and it's a real fun listen. It's not too long, it's not too short, it's good. A lot of cool hooks on here, a lot of cool sounds splattered through it, interesting lyrics that you kind of just have to make your own mind up about what they're talking about. Okay, so number 4 is No Grave But the Sea by Hailstorm. Now, Hailstorm are also one of my favorite bands. I love them to bits. I love what they do. They are a metal band that are, if you've ever heard folk metal before, they're kind of a folk metal band, but even though some folk metal bands don't take themselves seriously, these guys like super don't take themselves seriously. They focus on a pirate theme, and somehow, I think this is their 5th studio album, somehow they've managed to get 5 albums of material that hasn't run dry, based on the fact that they are heavy metal pirates. And this album, they just keep getting better and better, I honestly think. This album is on par with their last album before it. Just some really good stuff on here. It can get a little tiring to listen to, like if you listen to the whole thing all at once, you might start thinking, okay, alright, I've heard these distorted guitars, I've heard these pirate shanties, I've heard these stories, like they're all kind of blending together. So this is probably one of the first albums on here that I think might be better, not as a full album listen, just, you know, to pick some tracks out of that you like. They're all good. I mean, you might love the whole thing together, just sometimes I get a bit bored of listening to pirate music for 10 tracks. Anyway, yeah, so that sounds like I didn't like it. What am I talking about? I really like it. Good stuff. Also, the bonus edition of this album has a second... There's 2 CDs in it, and the second one is called No Grave But the Sea for Dogs, which sounds kind of mean, actually, but it's basically exactly the same as the actual album. It's all the tracks, but all the lyrics have been taken out, and the vocal melody is just replaced with dog barking. Just one dog bark sample pitched to the melody of the vocals. Don't know why, but why not? I guess that was worth paying extra for the deluxe edition. Number 3 will be displayed here, I think, is Like a Drug by Schlump. Now, I'm not a huge lover of today's, okay, I say today's, like 5 years ago's dubstep, you know, movement that came along, the sort of bro step movement where it's, you know, how many gargling, screaming, roaring, burping synths can you cram into one drop to make the most bizarre robot fucking soundscape? That never, as much as I like some of the stuff and, you know, can like it for sort of from an ironic perspective, I never ever loved that kind of stuff, but it did open me to, you know, I heard a lot of people saying, oh, this isn't dubstep, I like the old stuff. So I was like, what is the old stuff? And I went and checked it out, and I became one of those people. I really do quite like the old dubstep sound, and this album, Like a Drug, it's not old, but it has that old dubstep sound going on, as well as some more trappy elements, some trippy elements, and just some really interesting sounds peppered throughout it. Like, I can't fault this album one bit. It's just so interesting to listen to, it's deep to listen to. Yeah, it just blew me away, just how much I enjoyed this album. And also that flows directly into number 2 on this list, which is Hydro, also by the same artist, Schlump, which sort of, I actually hope I'm not getting these 2 albums mixed around, which one is which, because this is another one of those situations where I listen to them in America and we listen to them in the car a lot, and they're kind of interchangeable, but these ones I did listen to outside of being in that car, so I'm pretty sure I got these the right way around. But yeah, Hydro is a lot more trappy in its approach, but also has some of those, you know, older dubsteppy elements in it. And, you know, both of these albums are just full of fantastic sounds that one day I hope to be able to do myself in my own music. Right. And number one, my favorite album of 2016, and actually remained still my favorite album through 2017. So for the last 2 years it's held this spot. Is this one. Set in Stone by Stick Figure, which, if you had told me 3 or 4 years ago your favorite album 2 years in the future from now would be reggae, I'd be like, that doesn't sound like me. I've never liked reggae. And it's true, I've never really vibed with reggae until this came along, and I just loved it from start to finish. There's nothing on here that bores me. There's nothing on here that I think sounds like super cliche. Obviously it has all those like reggae elements to it, otherwise it, you know, reggae isn't reggae without the reggae bits. So but it does them really well, really tastefully. A bunch of interesting melodies going on, a bunch of interesting topics. You know, none of these topics are all the same. It's not like an entire album about smoking weed. It's not an entire album about whatever else reggae is about. It's a mixed bag, and I love it to bits. I love the vibes that come off this album. I listened to it a lot on the beach when I went to America. The 2 times I went to America this year, both times got the privilege to hang out on the beach. The first time was like a more secluded, less touristy beach, and the next time was a very touristy beach. But both times, perfect beach music, just to put this in your ears and shut everything out and just enjoy the sun, enjoy the people around you enjoying themselves, the trees, the heat, the sand, swimming. This is, I would say this is like my perfect summer album. It's probably gonna stay my perfect summer album for years to come. Like, I'm gonna go to America later this year, probably not gonna go to the beach this year, but, you know, I'm going to a sunny place, we might hang out by the pool, and I'm gonna stick this on whether the people I'm with like it or not, because it's just perfect vibes for sunshine and just good times with good people. So, yeah. So that's that. That's my list of all the albums that have stood out to me the most over the last 2 years. Sorry I didn't get around to making this video sooner. Don't really have an excuse. I just didn't do it. So what are your favorites? What's your current favorite album? What's 5 albums you remember from the last year, month? I don't know how much music you listen to, but tell me some stuff you like. I want to hear it. You might be currently enjoying what ends up being my favorite album of this year. So let's hear what you got. Yeah. It feels good to do a video, finally. I've been meaning to do this for so long. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're taking care of yourself. And if not, I hope you start to. You big idiot. You can leave. I'm done. I'm done. I just want this video to be 30 minutes long. So 29, 33, 4, you know, it's not a satisfying length, is it? Means I spent about 2 minutes on each album on average. Interesting. Normally people are just like, this one I like it, this one I like it too, this one no, I just blab. Sorry about that. Anyway, bye.